there. Welcome to Real Estate and Life with Dawn and Erik, your go-to podcast for all things local real estate and beyond. I'm Dawn Olson, your friendly neighborhood real estate agent.
And I'm R.E.A.L, here to bring you the husband's perspective to keep things entertaining.
Each week, we'll be diving into the roller coaster ride that is the real estate market, sharing insights, updates, and a few laughs along the way.
From the latest market trends to the craziest stories Dawn has encountered while in the real estate business, we've got it all covered.
So whether you're a seasoned homeowner or a first-time home buyer, buckle up and join us as we navigate the ups and downs of the real estate world together.
Get ready for some real talk, some laughs, and maybe even a few eye-opening moments. Welcome to Real Estate and Life with Dawn and Erik.
Welcome to the introduction episode of the Real Estate and Life podcast, R.E.A.L for short. So, pretty excited about it and looking forward to providing information about real estate and sharing the ins and outs of life as a real estate agent, as a married couple, and just the human condition in general. So,
yeah. So I have questions in front of me. I'm going to grill my wife, interrogation style here. I wish I had a dark light, light over the top of her. It's like getting held in prison. Where were you the night of the 24th? No, I'm not going to do that to her. No waterboarding. No, that's illegal. All right. So my name's Erik Olson. I've been married to Dawn for 24 years, roughly. Been together since late 99, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
So this podcast, like she already introduced, is about real estate and life. And so I've got questions here I'm going to ask my wife about her life from the beginning, her growing up, moving around, different aspects of her life and jobs. So first off, I'm going to ask Dawn, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Kankakee County, but lived in Bourbonnais.
All right.
Specifically Birch's Mobile Home Park, which was a very nice place to live back in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s a little bit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid, I believe we had driven through there once or twice when we were younger. I don't know the reasoning, but I remember it being like a resort type looking.
Yeah, kind of.
The basketball courts, the tennis courts and stuff.
Yeah, we lived across from the basketball courts and the tennis courts and the playground.
I can't remember. Was there a pool ever there?
No pool.
I must be thinking of somewhere else. But so yeah, it was kind of a cool like resort type place in the middle of town, which was neat. Because back then, Walmart wasn't there, Hobby Lobby wasn't there.
Right.
All that stuff that was there was all fields. There was a miniature golf / Kiwi Hamburgers place on Route 50 around that time, which was a cool place to visit. So during your childhood growing up in Birches, what things did you experience as a kid growing up there?
Well, I grew up as a tomboy. That was just naturally what I was drawn to.
Right.
And so I think the ratio of boys versus girls out in the park, there was definitely more boys, and I just found that I could easily get along with them, and so I would play football and tackle football and baseball and basketball and all that good stuff. So grew up pretty much a tomboy. And
I remember some stories. Dawn's told me some stories over the years about growing up there. I remember there was a time that she has told me about some kid that
you gonna talk about Meatball?
Meatball. Kid in a trailer park named Meatball. That's right out of a movie, right?
Love you, David.
So
David Schultz. We affectionately called him Meatball.
What happened? Because I remember your mom getting involved.
No, that was a different.
Oh, it's a different story. See, I'm totally.
Well, the one about Meatball is he was picking on my brother.
See how protective she is?
And my younger brother, Harry. And he was picking on Harry, who was 2 years younger than me, but he was picking on him. And I was walking down the street and I saw a 4-foot 2x4 and I picked it up and I went over there and smacked him with it.
So you hit Meatball with the 2x4.
I hit Meatball with a 2x4,
Oh
so
my
he'd
God.
stop picking on my brother.
So did he stop?
From what I remember, yes.
Okay, so you hit him hard enough?
Then I ran, yeah.
I would run too. So there's always childhood stories, growing up in the subdivisions and stuff, and I have my fair share. But what I'm doing here is I'm asking Dawn questions and stuff. So
get to know me. Get to know me.
Get to know Dawn. Her
series
childhood.
Of questions.
So as for
anything you've ever wanted to know.
In general, I know we've talked over the years about our childhoods, and we had similar stuff go on.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in the early '80s and stuff, did you, as far as me also, did you battle any types of, say anxiety, depression, and stuff? Because that's coming out amongst a lot of people and getting more relevant. And purpose of this podcast too is to open up about ourselves and make us, especially my wife, more approachable.
Yeah, so as a person, not just a real estate professional.
What things did you deal with growing up as far as that?
Well, I'm Gen X. We're Gen X, so that means a lot of times, well, and what you're asking specifically is, yeah, I grew up an anxious kid. I didn't know it at the time, and I wouldn't realize it in its full intensity until my teens. But yeah, I grew up and I grew up anxious, and a lot of that had to do with the environment I grew up in, but a lot of it was organic, just within me, just part of my DNA, I guess. But yeah, so I grew up with anxiety, and that would rear its ugly head in my teens. You were referencing the other thing where my mother marching down the street barefoot.
Somebody broke your collarbone, correct?
Yes, because we were playing baseball, and for whatever reason, I got into an argument with a much older boy. I think I was probably 10 and he was like 14 or 15. And we were all playing baseball, and somehow, as kids will antagonize each other, talk smack, he decides that he's going to talk badly about my mother.
Oh.
So I turned into this little Tasmanian devil and went after him.
I wish I could.
And he pushed me to the ground, and I instantly had a broken collarbone, which was actually the second time that collarbone had been broken, because when I was a young child and jumped off the bed onto a Tonka truck, I broke my collarbone. So anyway, that was broken. Meatball went and got my mom.
Oh boy.
So I'm laying on the ground at the park, and we're not far. My house wasn't far from the park. So I was laying and I was looking to my right, waiting for my mom to come down, and I could see out of the corner of my eye that my mother was 6 foot tall when I was growing up. She, with age is shorter now, but my mother stood 6 foot tall, and all 6 foot of her come marching down, which was a gravel road at the time, barefoot, marching down the street to find out what has happened to her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I seen her coming, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're in trouble now. You're in trouble now. Here comes Marla." So, yeah. So there was a lot of that going on. I grew up rough and tumble with the boys. That day I ended up leaving by ambulance, and not before, though, my mother getting a hold of the kid that broke my collarbone. She had him by his shirt collar, and she wasn't letting go until somebody showed up. I don't know if it was the police or whatever, but yes, that was very typical of my childhood. Just survival of the fittest then, and it's survival of the fittest now. I had to learn to be tough from a very early age.
Yeah.
My mom and dad, we lived in California when I was very young. So I was born and raised here, but then we ended up in California. And my father was very physically abusive to my mother. And so that would begin, the first few years of my life was being exposed to domestic violence on the daily.
Yeah.
And that would trigger and cause what would be, anxiety and depression issues later, which we'll talk about more in the podcast. That's something that we aim to discuss about ourselves. We both share those challenges in our life, but they are also some of the important things about them that have created who I am as a person, and ironically brings who I am to the table and helps me in my real estate business because of the compassion, the patience, and the empathy that I bring, because buying and selling real estate can be pretty stressful and anxiety provoking.
I've witnessed it at home, on the phone.
So
I think what a good point here is to go into the school. What did you do in school, grade school?
Yeah.
I think everybody would like to know what kind of times that you had in school makes you more interested. What would make you more interesting and approachable as a real estate agent?
Okay. Well, I don't know that, ironically, in school, I was not one of the popular kids. I would now realize into my adulthood that I was an introvert then and I'm an introvert now. I'm more of somebody that will sit back and watch and observe. I'm self-diagnosed ADD, and I anybody that knows me knows.
Yeah.
Pay attention because the topic will switch on a dime. So, but just, in school, I was kind of a tough kid. I think looking back now, it was just a defense mechanism. And I had the height like my mother. I was probably 5'9", 5'10" in grade school. So I kind of towered over my peers, but I kind of liked it because it made me feel like I probably would not be picked on.
Right. So, and you probably felt like a protector to
actually,
some of the kids too.
That's a good point.
I would probably look for somebody that was big and tough if I was a little twerp to be my best friend.
You're right.
The Christmas story, you got the bully.
I never really thought
twerp.
about that until now, but I very much was a protector in school, kind of as I am now of people.
Yep.
Always protecting the underdog. Always. Yeah. So you ask about school, grade school. Just the average kid, average grades, trouble paying attention.
Right.
Easily bored. Class clown once in a while to get a few laughs.
Yeah.
Something I've always liked doing is getting laughs out of people. I think I'm kind of funny.
Yeah, a little bit.
I am a little funny. I think I'm funny. I can be funny.
The Dawn Olson. The Dawn Olson emergency turn.
We'll talk
for
about
later.
that. That's another episode.
Something out of a Batman movie.
There's stories. Everybody has a Dawn Olson story that's in my life.
Hilarious. That should be a special segment for this podcast.
Yes, we'll interview those that have stories, and it'll be great entertainment. As far as school, though.
High school. What happened? What was going on in high school?
High school. First year, freshman year was fine. I was not into sports. I was not into any of that. I was still very much a tomboy. Got labeled as a stoner, even though I was not even remotely that, just because I wore concert t-shirts and jeans and tennis shoes. I was not preppy. You were either preppy or you were a stoner, or you're a jock or you're a stoner in school. And
that's the way it was.
Well, I was neither, but I got lumped in with the stoner crowd. So there you go. But anyway, the first year was fine, no big deal. And it was, second year, it was tough. My sophomore year at age 15 was the beginning of some of the most challenging years in my life. And that year at age 15 stands out as one of the most difficult, and so much so that it disrupted me and my ability to pay attention and participate in school. The depression and anxiety was just too much, and being social and being around people was just more than I could take, and I ended up quitting high school. And I also ended up struggling with my relationship with my mother, and I ended up leaving home at 15 with my then boyfriend, David, he doesn't realize it. I don't know if he ever realized it, but he single-handedly kept me on this earth because I was really struggling.
Yeah.
I was pretty much suicidal, living at home. And there was a threat of not being able to see David anymore. And so I decided, at that time, my relationship with him was the lifeline getting me through my depression and anxiety. And he's the person I love most in the world at the time. And so I decided that I was leaving home. There's just no way in the world that we were going to get separated. And I left home and I never went back. And we moved in together, and we just did life the best we could, and eventually got married and then got divorced. And, but yeah, I did end up quitting high school, which is one of my deepest regrets in life that always feels so unfinished. I did go on to get my GED the minute I turned 18 because I knew I wanted to go on to college and take college, courses and stuff like that. So, yeah.
That was probably a big, big thing for a lot of kids in that generation. Just didn't know what to do. Parents didn't know what to do.
Oh, yeah. Gosh.
So definitely.
I'm so glad that there is awareness about it nowadays. There's so much awareness that, to me, looking back, it seems like there's some sort of epidemic now of so many kids so anxious and depressed.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely an epidemic.
Social media, probably, but
it is a big part. Social media has been a big part of it. Because when we were growing up, we seen whatever was on TV or on the news once or twice a day.
And that was it.
Or heard it on the radio if the radio station came in the car.
Now you can't escape it, so I can't even imagine if I had to go through what I went through in the early 80s. If I had to go through that now, I don't know.
It'd be really rough. So after high school, and I've heard this, and that's one thing I've always knew about you since we met is your drive, hyper focused on your next thing. What was your first job that you really, really just enjoyed?
My first job that I actually enjoyed?
Yeah.
Honestly, real estate, but I had several jobs.
Right.
From age 16, I started as a pizza maker at Dale's Pizza.
Yep, good old Dale's.
On Station Street, because I actually lived in the apartment across the street. And So I could walk across the street and, it felt comfortable because I was an anxious kid.
Yeah.
I was 16. I was scared to death of everything as it was. And I was just in a constant state of anxiety. So the idea of just simply getting a job and, it was a little scary. So the fact that it was like a baby step, like I would literally go across the street.
Yeah.
I could see my house through the windows,
Yeah.
I mean, it seems silly, but
you're in your comfort zone.
Yeah. The security of just being able to see where I lived across the street helped me. And it was a building block. That was the first step. And there would always be steps throughout my life constantly, like I'm doing right now. I'm doing this podcast. And believe it or not, I'm nervous and I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm not, though I'm starting to get more comfortable sitting here. It's the number one thing that I will talk about in this podcast and throughout it is encouraging to step into fear always, because you take the power away every single time.
Yeah.
So, I worked at Dale's Pizza as a pizza maker. And then it would just build from there. I'd get more courage to do something else. And because the desire to learn and to work was always there, but the fear was always nipping at my heels about not wanting to, just totally in a constant state of feeling insecure.
Yeah. The anxiety was a big part of it.
Yeah. So I was working at Dale's Pizza, and then I would do some other things here and there. And then I would go on to work. I've done all kinds of things, and I could just never settle on anything because it would only keep my
attention span. I
would get bored easy. So my next job would be working at Municipal Bank for Merlin Carlock. I was a teller, and that was interesting. It was a little out of who I was because now I'm starting to dress up, and it felt a little foreign to me. I'm, starting to evolve into a different person, a little more professional and less rough and tough, from growing up as a kid with boys and then, working in a lumber yard. Now I'm going to dress up as a professional and be, working at a bank. And that I liked it and it was interesting, but it wasn't quite the job.
It probably wore on you really quick.
Yeah, it just wasn't me. So I would then go on to work for Coldwell Banker Real Estate. This is when they were located on Route 50, but it's where what is that? Slim's. It's where Slim's is now. That used to be the real estate office. Then it was called something else, Coldwell Banker America. I don't remember what it was called, but I was the receptionist. And it's funny. Gosh, I feel ancient for what I'm about to say, but I was the receptionist. And it's funny because back then in the early 90s, 91, agents had to come pick up the keys for every and any house that they wanted to show.
Crazy.
And we had a giant book of all the listings. It was this huge binder. And if an agent would call and say they wanted to show the house, then you'd have to sift through this big binder and see if it was still available. And then they'd come get the keys. And when they're done, they'd bring back the keys. And I think about that now. That was such a nightmare and a
pain in the butt.
Just so much time doing that, and how much easier it is the way we have it now. But it's kind of funny to think about it now. But I got my first taste of the real estate world, and I thought, well, this looks like a lot of fun. And I was in charge of doing ads for the Daily Journal and the Home Guide and stuff like that.
Even back then.
Even back then, I was doing ads and doing assorting, getting the agents, getting them organized and getting their ads and for the homes that they wanted to have in for that week or that month or whatever. And
right.
So I got a taste of that. And I'm like, I just then thought, while I was working there, anything and everything I'd done, I'm like, I could do this better.
Mm-hmm.
There's a better way. There has to be a better way of doing this. And I kind of got the bug then, and I really loved working with a lot of agents there. Rosemary Alberts was there, Jackie Bretzman, just a lot of awesome agents. And I really admired a lot of them, especially the women. A lot of take charge women making things happen. And I really looked up to that. And then still restless, I don't know, I guess I got bored with what I was doing there. So I ended up I left there and I had an opportunity to go work for the corporate office of Monocle's Pizza.
Okay.
And there I was an auditor. I would audit the sales receipts and stuff that would come in from each store. And that was tedious. That wasn't, and then I would later have an opportunity to do some payroll and stuff. But again, I liked that it challenged me mentally. And I liked the challenge that kept it interesting, but it just being chained to a chair and a desk all day just was not it. I had all that anxious energy in me still, and I needed my freedom.
Yeah.
So I would end up being married to my then second husband,
right,
Todd, and I became pregnant with our first child, and then I made a very difficult decision. Talk about, to stay home.
Yeah.
Because difficult, not difficult. If you're an introvert, staying at home with your children may not be so difficult, but it's a tough job being a stay-at-home mom, no doubt about it. But I did it because the anxiety in me simply would not allow my mind and my heart. I could not trust anybody.
No, exactly. That's a big issue.
I could not trust a soul with my kids.
Right.
So there just was no other option but to be home with them. Even staying at home with the kids, I needed the mental stimulation of doing something creative, doing something productive, and trying to bring an income in at the same time. So when I was home with my daughter, Kinsey, I started up, and she was born in 94, so like 95, I started a resume business where I was creating resumes for people, and that was the beginning. It was dial-up internet.
Oh yeah,
AOL, and that was the beginning of my experimenting with websites.
Techie.
And I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. That's where my tech started, my interest in tech. Then I started going to KCC to get an associate's degree in computer information systems. So I did that, and I started taking apart computers and putting them back together. And I'm like, well, that's all right. But I was more interested in the creative part, the software and the programming and stuff like that, website design and stuff like that. So I decided I was taking classes, and a lot of times they were at night or whatever. And so it was something I just did when I could do it. And so did the resume thing. And then my son, Ryan, but Ryan came along. I was pregnant with Ryan, still stay-at-home moms, still going to classes, but then I was able to get a job with UPS.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
So Todd would work a day shift, and then he'd come home, and we would he's jumping out of the car, I'm jumping in. I was working at UPS from 4 to 8 p.m., which was perfect.
Yeah.
I couldn't get out of the house fast enough when you're a stay-at-home mom. And those who do that, you already know. You're like, see ya, it's your turn.
Vacation, yeah.
It's your turn.
It's a vacation. Yeah.
Tag, you're it.
Yeah.
I'm out of there for 4 hours. I got to go and interact with other adults and do something that I actually enjoyed doing that. I was an international auditor.
Okay.
And that's where any packages going international, I would have to go through all the paperwork and get everything prepared for customs. And so I really enjoyed that. And there was a really interesting time there. I happened to be there when UPS had gone on strike.
Oh, wow.
And that was really interesting. So that's a story for another day. But yeah, I was there during the.
I forgot about that. And now I remember
UPS went on strike, and
yeah.
I was still young. I was in my 20s, and I didn't understand. And I would later, with you, become part of a union family, and I didn't understand. Back then I crossed the picket lines, and so now I wouldn't do that now. But
just didn't know.
I just didn't know. Yeah. So anyway, let's see. So
after that, you did the KCC, UPS. Ryan was getting ready to be born.
Still doing KCC when I could, and
the resume business, because I remember when we met, initially met, I think you were still doing that.
A little bit
of that. Yeah. I remember, I think you did some resumes for some of the people I worked with at Equal NutraSuite.
Yep.
So that was kind of
throughout the years, I would still kind of do it to help people out and stuff. So, and then let's see, still stay-at-home mom, still going to school, and then had trouble in my second marriage, and Todd and I ended up getting divorced in 99, summer of 99, and then you and I actually met the winter of 99.
So where did we meet at?
Well,
that's part of our life.
Yeah, actually, so backing up a little, when I was still married to Todd, to make extra income, I started a bartending job at John's Pub.
Good old John's Pub.
In Bourbonnais. I was doing that in the afternoon and evenings. And again, so I went from a stay-at-home mom, which is challenging to not be around adults much and have adult interaction and stuff. And then I started bartending and started getting the adult interaction and talking to people and socializing and stuff like that. And that started to build my confidence up again, because it's kind of hard to, I don't know, you don't know your place in the world sometimes when you're a stay-at-home mom. You're in the trenches, and looking back, you realize how important it is to be there, but it's tough. So actually bartending and being social again, which was a mix between introvert and so, it was just a nice mix. You're only there a few hours and you get to go home and, decompress. Yeah. Exactly. So what that did for me, though, while continuing to go to school, is it built my confidence up again to be independent. So just the simple act of getting in the job force again, if you will, just inspired me to, I knew bartending was only temporary. Yeah. I was not, I had no intention of making a career out of it or anything. It was just a stopping point along the way. I knew what the main goal was, to get some sort of education to keep. I crave to this day, every single day. You hear me all the time listening, webinars, YouTube. I'm just constantly listening. And I'm just craving it all the time. I want to learn. So
my brain would have exploded years ago. As much stuff she's got going through there.
Yeah. And so anyway, getting to the point is I was still working as a bartender, but the owner also owned Broadway Bottle Club. And so I would start working there. That's how you and I met. You were a bouncer. I was a bartender, and we weren't even on each other's radar for months.
No. I remember I was going through a lot of crazy crap. That's
a young middle 20s.
Getting kind of pulled around by
Nice guy getting
crapped on, whatever. But unfortunately, it seemed to always happen at that workplace. Dawn, we had mutual friends through the bottle club. Bob and Gina Mason. Heath was one of the bouncers. Jason Smith. Scooby, if you guys remember Scooby from back in the day. Long-haired guy, and he's, I believe, Cherokee. He'd always say, "Oh, it's a full moon out tonight. We're gonna have troubles," and he wasn't wrong.
At the bottle
just a
club.
cool mix of personalities. And after the close, we would close and clean up. We would all hang out and drink a couple beers here and there. But yeah, we weren't the craziness I was going through in life, and what she had just come to find out, which I didn't know. She's recently divorced and stuff, but
we weren't even on each other's radars.
We were just associates, seeing each other.
Just co-workers. We just,
So after that, I know the story. It's a little embarrassing.
No,
for
we're
me,
not going to tell a story.
But no, it's just a little embarrassing to me because I didn't latch on to her sooner.
Latch on?
Literally should have took the first opportunity to
we just
start the relationship. But
there's just a time and a place for everything,
And those couple of months where I didn't, and I regret all the time not whatever, it worked out. But, it worked out. We're still together. So after we met, there's a lot of different stories and stuff that we could bring up in life and stuff, but just that atmosphere at the club, even after we started dating and stuff, it was like a close
we started dating.
Little close family, get to hang out with these people all the time and stuff. Afterwards,
co-workers, became good friends.
Afterwards with kids, young kids about the same age. We made relationships together as an early couple.
We actually went to the gym. You've been
Gold's Gym there right on Broadway, which was the first gym. I always gravitated towards working out because it helped my issues, the release of anxieties, pent up energy, which I didn't know how to
Going
deal
to the
with.
gym is your therapy.
My therapy. It's just and her physical work is her release, and that, and my physical work is too. Over the years as a fitter and fork truck driver, manual.
So we were co-workers. We were gym mates. We
go to the gym. We'd ride our bikes to the gym from Kankakee, the Gold Gym on Broadway, and after
we moved in together, and
it was cool. Little thing going on.
We got married 9 days after 9/11 happened.
That assures everybody that was around during that time, that was a really
that was a really crazy time.
An odd time in everybody's lives to be around and a part of that, and it's definitely scary.
Yeah,
and that brings back a lot of things from my childhood. I was always worried about stuff happening in the air,
But we had a really good.
We had a good family.
Yeah, and we got married, October 20th of 2001, and we got married at the Stone Barn.
Really
fun
awesome. Fun fact from Dawn Olson.
Fun fact.
Yep.
The Stone Barn is in my family from way back. Lemuel Milk is my great four greats uncle. That was his carriage house behind his mansion that would eventually burn down. His mansion burnt down. But the Stone Barn, which is now the French Museum, was his carriage house. And so that we got married there before it was the French Museum. It was beautiful. It was the most simple, romantic wedding. And so it's fun to drive by there and with loving memories of being married there.
We went in there, was it last year or so?
As the French Museum.
one of the kids I work out around, Dylan Litka, he has a coffee thing, Brewhead Espresso,
And he was in there,
doing a thing in there. And we went in there and supported him and walked around and stuff. And it was pretty interesting to see how it was. And but it's filled with stuff like these artifacts and stuff and neat facts and stuff. It's pretty neat.
So after we got married, and then what was it, 2002, I ended up getting pregnant with Brandon, our child, together. That was awesome. And
during this time, right before Brandon was born, I think you started. Were you driving for the bus? It was after Brandon.
Oh, that was after Brandon.
That was after Brandon.
Yeah, I decided to stay home with Brandon again. And keep in mind, all through these years and stuff and all this time passing, real estate is still in the back of my mind. Like, it's still something I'm like gravitating towards. And I keep thinking, one of these days, when the kids are all in school, and I want to do something about it. And so in the meantime, I drove a school bus for the Bradley School District. And it really worked out well because I was able to bring Brandon with me in his car seat, which he was only about not even 2 yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
And I would do that for about a year. And because really by that time, the itch needed to be scratched for real estate. And I ended up taking, at the time, you had to take 60 hours of real estate classes. And I was able to do that. And so I did that. And in 2005, I got my real estate license. Nowadays, you have to do 90. And it kind of bugs me how, to some degree, it's easy to get your real estate license, but it's really not that easy.
No.
I mean, it's easy to keep taking the test until you get it right.
Yeah.
But it's really, and ironically, real estate classes are about 95% you're learning real estate law, period. They don't teach you how to sell real estate. No. They don't teach you sales. They don't teach you any of the things that you learn when you get into it. So, but yeah, so I would end up getting my real estate license in 2005, and I've been doing it for 19 years, and it is what I enjoy doing. It's
you were probably meant to do
because it's the only thing that's stuck for a long period of time. You never know what's going to happen. Everything's always changing. Mm-hmm. You have a deal one minute and the next you don't. I mean, it keeps you on your toes. You're always having to problem solve. I always thought I would want to be an attorney growing up, but I quite honestly didn't want to go through all the schooling because I'm not
You're pretty much along those lines anyway.
I know. Yeah. I know, but without the law degree, but it really stuck. And I went to school. The classes I ended up taking were business classes, and then I ended up taking marketing and advertising. That's what I love.
Yeah.
And that's where I really shine in sales and just being a people person and understanding, empathetic, just all that. So, and here I am 19 years later, and I needed to find another way to challenge myself and push myself out of my comfort zone. And I'm doing this podcast. Yep. You and I together doing life, real estate and life. That's the podcast. And it's a dash of real estate advice, updates, and a dash of life. Yeah, dash of life. So.
Oh, I think that's got us up to current. Mm-hmm. I think, there's a lot of stuff that could be filled in over the years. That's going to be for later episodes. Yeah. I think, just thinking of different little segments we could do, like stories from Dawn Olson's real estate or something like that, or a family story, a quick family story.
So there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in real estate, and every agent has said at one time or another, I ought to write a book.
Oh, I've heard so many crazy stuff going on.
So this will be your inside look at the audio book, like an audio book, but a podcast of all the crazy things that go on in real estate, the things I've seen, heard. I've been chased by a squirrel in a house.
Oh yeah,
Sherry and Jeff. If they listen to this, they'll remember that, and just all kinds of crazy stuff that I'm gonna share. And then Erik has been my husband, over 24 years now, and he has seen a lot in the 19 that I've been a real estate agent, and
it's crazy.
Just going to we both volunteer a lot. We both are advocates and help other people that are advocates in the community. And we're going to share that information and ways that other people can join us and help. And
well, for sure.
Just that, I'd say that's probably one of the things we're most passionate about together is just, being advocates for the community, for the people that don't have a voice.
The underdogs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be the purpose of this podcast, is just a little bit of everything and to make it fun, hopefully, and we do tend to feed off of each other. We both are a little sarcastic. And hopefully it'll be fun and see what happens. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Real Estate and Life with Dawn and Erik. We hope you enjoyed our discussions on the wild world of real estate and maybe even got a chuckle or two out of the crazy stories.
If you've liked what you've heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to tune in next week for more insightful conversations, updates on the market, and of course, our segment on the wildest things I've seen in real estate.
Until then, this is Erik
and Dawn signing off and wishing you all the best in your real estate adventures and everyday life. Take care, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Real Estate and Life with Dawn and Erik.